not going to put a hook in it because I'm really low on ceramic shell, so I'm going to have to dip it both ways, and the hook just keeps me from getting in there far enough. I'll just set it like this to dry. I did put a vent to make sure I don't get an air bubble right here. And typically, I don't like to pour bronze where the bronze can go both ways at the same time for fear of trapping air and having a void in the finished bronze. But the cross sections of this are pretty big, so I don't think the bronze will freeze fast enough to make that happen. Counting on that. But otherwise, go start the dipping process.
So on the 8th and the 9th dips, I only dipped the bottom half. The pressure in the mold is it's liquid pressure, and it's proportional to the height that you pour the liquid. So the pressure at the bottom is much greater than the pressure at the top. If it's going to fail, more than likely it'll fail at the bottom. So I was just trying to make it easy on myself. In the last 2 dips, I just dipped the bottom half.
This is the kind of mold that's a prime candidate for breaking in the kiln because the wax expands and it has so far to go before it can get out that it's likely to crack the mold if I were to just stick this in the kiln and heat it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat it from the bottom where the wax can run out. I'm going to try to get at least the majority of the wax out before I put it in the kiln.
So also, because I had to dip this thing both ways, the inside of the cup is lined with ceramic shell. and that would further impede the wax getting out. So this is the way to do it. Burn out the cup first with the torch before putting it in the kiln. When you're doing this, there's really no way to tell where the wax is still solid and where it's melted out. You can tell by color because the sprue wax is red, it comes out pretty quick. It melts at a lower temperature. But what I do, as long as the wax is still pouring out steady, I don't move any higher. I just keep it where it is. When it seems to slow down, then I move up a little bit. So that's all I know how to do. I got a crack right here. Even though I was being real careful. That's the only one so far. Wax is not running out of it, so I know the wax is still solid up there at the top part. So my wax container under there is almost overflowing. So I'm just gonna, I turn off my torch, I'm just gonna let it smolder here for a while and call it good, and when it cools down we'll put it in the kiln and do the final burnout. Ended up getting this much wax out of the hoop mold. I didn't weigh it beforehand like I should have, but it's got it, at least half of it came out. So now it's in the kiln, and the remaining wax is burning out of it, and the wax is dripping from a different mold. But you get it real hot and it should be all burnt out. Apparently there's some wax left in something. I got 4 molds in there. I got the hoop mold and 3 little sculptures. A lot of wax burning out this morning. So burnout yesterday went well. No failures. I kind of staged my pieces here. I want to, I always try to make a frame where they can't fall over when I'm pouring, but it can't be too tight because they're awkward to handle when they're hot and I got the mitts on. I've noticed I've been getting lots of cracks. See these cracks in these cups? And then these little vents just fell off. I think my ceramic shell is losing its strength. It's almost 2 years old. And the reason that one container has lasted 2 years is because I spent a year on the houseboat and didn't do much pouring. But I think I need to order another drum and just throw whatever's left in there away. So I'll patch these up a little bit with some ceramic shell, and I'll put them back in the kiln and we'll have them red hot when it comes time to pour this morning. Sand pit is all ready to go with braces and sand where needed. The crucible is loaded. Got 2 new ingots and some of the recycled ingots to get it started. And the kiln is loaded. You notice the yellow on the 3 little ones, that's where the cups were cracked. I dipped just the cup part, put sand inside and out. It'll dry in a hurry when I turn the fire on. And big boy here, I'm gonna have to pick it up from the bottom. It's gonna be kind of awkward, but we'll make do. It'll feel good to light stuff this morning because it's cold. Plug it in or more. Sometimes I pour by myself and sometimes Deb comes and helps me. In this case, I was glad she came because this mold, the only place I could grab it was at the bottom. It was really top heavy. I was scared to death the thing was going to roll off onto the floor. So I was glad she was there. These gloves, which I have basically turned into paddles, they keep out 100% of the heat. You never feel like you're going to get burnt, but they're really awkward. And I haven't dropped a mold with them yet, but it's only a matter of time. There's no way I could really hold on to this mold with these thin leather gloves. But it was at an awkward angle. I just needed to move it a little bit. And I was just touching the top of the cup, which is the coolest part at this point because it has the most surface area to cool down. But otherwise, you can't deal with these molds. They come out of a 1700 degree oven with leather gloves. Good pour? Yep, looks like a good pour. Now, it's been a couple of hours since I poured, and I'm going to go ahead and break the shell off of this thing. And I love the way when the bronze shrinks, it cracks the shell. Half of it is just falling off. Except it makes a mess in my sand pit. Give it a quickie bead blast, and it looks really good. Not perfect, but it looks really good. So tomorrow I'm going to cut it up off the tree and make a circle out of it and clean it up. And that'll be the end of this little video. I received this big grinder for Father's Day a few weeks ago, and used it once for about 2 minutes, and then I just tried to change the blade and the little block button flew out, and I can't for the life of me figure out what was supposed to keep it in there. Doesn't say much for DeWalt quality control, although I appreciate the gift. After dealing with 4.5-inch grinders forever, picking up this 7-inch grinder was a little intimidating. It's like 3 times heavier, and that's something to get used to. But after using it with a cutoff wheel to cut these bronzes up, I am a happy camper. I'm a convert. There is no going back. As far as using a cutting wheel, this big grinder, this is awesome. Cuts faster and smoother, and I think it's even quieter. Oh my goodness, this is the tool. I love this stuff. So at this point, I have cut the ends square, just beveled them a little bit, and sanded off. It had some sharp edges on the bronze, just kind of knocked the rough stuff off. They're not clean by any means, but I wanted to get them halfway clean so I could lay out the circle and see what we got. Somewhere along the line, the wax changed shape. Look how far off it is from my little black line to the bronze. All of them are off a little bit. But luckily, the silicon bronze is very malleable, so I just should be able to bang these with a hammer a little bit, straighten them out. So for the next 30 or 40 minutes, this is what I did. I banged on the outside if it was too sharp of a curve, and if it wasn't curved enough, I'd put one end in a vise and just pull on it or tap it with a hammer. This stuff bends like a dream, and it took a while to get it all right, and it came out a little smaller than the original planned 24-inch circle. I'm not sure. That may be because I cut the ends too short, and maybe because the bronze shrank. Doesn't matter. It just needs to be a pretty circle. It ended up about 1 inch short, which changed the radius of the circle I drew on the table, which meant I had to rebend them all just a little bit. But after a while, we got them good, and we got a good looking circle. Yeah, it took me about 20 minutes of beating and bending, and I have lost some diameter. I'm not 24 anymore. It's more like 23. And that could be from bronze shrinking, and it also could be from, I cut the ends off a little too much, but that's cool, that doesn't matter. So I've got it a pretty circle. I'm going to tack, one side, flip it over, tack the other side, and then take a good look at it, and if it still looks copacetic, we'll weld it all up. This tacked together, and it looks very round from the side, but from the edge it looks like this kind of veers off a little bit. I'm gonna cut one of those tacks and bend it a little bit. I think I got it. I just cut it and drove a screwdriver in there. So I'm gonna tack this side back, pull the screwdriver out, flip it over, and let's look at the other side. Okay, I think we're good here. Still a little funky, but I think that's going to be easier to bend the whole thing after it's all welded up, because it really bends pretty easy. Drilling holes for anchor bolts in sculpture is always a trick, because basically you want to drill the hole perpendicular from the bottom, but when you turn it over there's nothing to register on, so typically I have to hang them so that the bottom, in this case for the hoop, the bottom is registered with this stainless steel bar, which is horizontal to the floor. I got it clamped upside down, and I'll drill a hole and I'll move that over a little bit and drill another hole. We're going to put 2 bolts in this thing. Alright, we have a hoop. 99% of the finished work is done. I got it bolted to a temporary piece of plywood, and we will bring it to the sculpture lady, and she will put a figure in it made of clay, and then I will have to make a mold of that figure. While I'm working on that mold and doing the dips for that, I'm going to go back over this with some little air tools and just clean up a little bit of the bumps that don't look right. But it's round, flat, sturdy, looking good.